Hello and welcome to today's workshop on what is human and how can it help you. My name is Missy Wanstow. I'm your friendly energy alignment companion and human design coach, and I've been working with clients since 2020 to help them unleash their awesomeness with human design. So let's dive right in and talk about today's workshop and what you're going to get out of it. So you are in the right place today if you are new to human design and you really want to know how it's going to be useful to you. So this could be either you haven't heard of human design at all, and maybe you think it's an organic thing, maybe you have no idea what it is, you just think it's a cool term, or perhaps you've dabbled a little bit in human design, maybe you've gotten your chart and you don't really know what to do with it. You're like, okay, I know what my strategy is, I know what my is. That's interesting. What's next? So that's exactly where you are today. Another reason why you might be in today's workshop is if you have found yourself really second guessing and doubting yourself, that's going to mean that you're in the right place to really find an aligned solution to build your confidence. So though that might not be why you necessarily showed up today, that's absolutely a reason why today's workshop is going to be helpful for you. And if you're looking for a soul aligned system to really help you get a clear path to live an authentic lifestyle, we're going to talk today about humanism do exactly that. Specifically in today's workshop, you're going to learn about the fundamentals of human design. So what it is, what are the different parts to it? You're going to talk about the clarity of the benefits of using human design and also the confidence. So what benefits of confidence and clarity can you get from using human design, and how do those really become part of your life? So let me know in the chat here, of those 3 goals, which ones excite you the most? And you can just put the number in 1, 2, or 3. All right, so I'm seeing a lot of clarity, a lot of confidence, and that's yes, okay, that's what I definitely expected. I know there's always questions about like, what is human design? How is it brought together? But it's definitely about like, how does this make your life better? How can we actually use human design to make things perfect? All right, thank you so much for sharing. So as I mentioned, my name is Missy. I am a human design coach. I'm a born and raised Delawarean. Mexican is my favorite food group. I love nerd board games, particularly playing with my family. And I also love being an aunt. I have beautiful nephews and a niece, and it's a lot of good times. And I am really here today to help you to unleash your awesomeness. And I've been working with my clients since 2020, and it's been a beautiful, beautiful process. So as we go through today, if you like to follow up with me, have any additional questions, you'll notice I'm on Instagram at I'm a Missy, IM.A.Missy. And that is the best way to get in contact with me, just sending me a chat through my Instagram. So now let's get to the exciting part for you, right? Let's take a look at what is this magical human design thing. And there are many different terms for it. Ultimately, it started back in the 1980s when a man named Alan Krakow essentially had a mystical journey, right? He had a mystical experience. And as part of his experience, he had a major download from the universe. And at that point, he transitioned to being known as Ra Uru Hu. And he's developed that system and brought together many followers to really show how the system is applied to you. So it came to him through a download from the universe. What makes it such a magical experience is that it combines multiple aspects of very, very ancient systems. So for example, it brings the chakras and the biology into it. So if you take at this picture here, if I were to, let me go backward. If I take a look at this picture, there we go. You'll see that there are different shapes in here. Well, each of these shapes has to do with the direct chakra systems. It also has to align with your biology. So where in the body you're going to be looking at. Are you looking at your throat? Are you looking at your head center? It also is going to combine the I Ching system. So if you take a look at these lines that are in here, the lines themselves are related to the overall Kabbalah, the tree of life, and have to do with the channels. And each line is broken into what are called gates. Those gates are directly connected to the I Ching because there are 4 of them. And if you take a look along the sides here, you have these little numbers on the side. These are called profiles. These profiles are also directly related to the hexagrams in the I Ching. And if we're taking a look at the sides here, we see that there are astrological symbols. So we are bringing all of these pieces together into a unified image. Now, if you have not seen this picture before, you can get a free chart for yourself at mybodygraph.com. There are a few other websites as well, but that's my personal favorite one to go to. And what this picture is really showing you as it integrates all of these different systems, it's the picture of your soul's blueprint. It's really a picture of your consistent energies in alignment, and it's a guidance system that's going to help you live your best life. So by bringing all of these energies together, it's showing you your base design. Whereas you lean into each of these energies, you learn what each of these actually means to your life and how to really lean into it. You're able to first remove any blockers. So any sort of energetic blockers that are keeping you from showing up as your true self. That could be from social conditioning. That could be from expectations on yourself. That could be just because you've never learned what your ideal self really is. For whatever reason, by knowing where the goal is, like this is I am really me, you're able to really step into your true superpowers. And so the human design system brings all of those different systems together into a single picture. And then as we go through human design, we essentially explore what the different components of that are and how they work together to really help you become the best you. So why am I able to present this to you today? Well, based on my picture, which is here on screen, my design literally says, Missy is a mirror for other people, so that way they can unleash their awesomeness. That is my actual mission for why I'm here on Earth. And I've used that to really say, not only am I helping people find their next steps, I'm doing it in a very practical way. And that's what makes me special in the world of human design and how I really help my clients start to see immediate results in their everyday today. So as part of today's workshop, we're going to go through and break down some of the key clarity and confidence points that you can start thinking about how your human design can help you. So let's take a look at the first piece. So here's a person, this is a different chart. So through each of these examples, we're going to look at a different chart and focus on some of the pieces. So I mentioned that there are different components of the human design system. And if we first take a look at the types and the centers, so what do I mean by that? When you do your human design chart, so again, if you go to mybodygraph.com or any other site, you're going to see one of 5 types that are your design. Now, we could go into the science of how that type is figured out, but it's written for you. You'll just want to go with that. So you'll be either a generator, a manifesting generator, a projector, a reflector, or a manifestor. And in this case, this person is a projector. You'll also have what are called the centers. So those shapes that are showing up in this picture, each of those is defined as a center, and those centers are related to your chakras. So some of the phrases that you'll see when working with human design are defined and undefined. Well, what does that mean? Well, defined means that it is colored in. So in this case, this person has their throat center, as well as their spleen that's defined for them. Additionally, they have a bunch of white centers that are open. The white centers mean they are undefined. There is nothing right or wrong, good or bad, with having something defined or undefined in human design. It's really about what are my natural energies and how am I going to apply them the best. So I tend to focus on the defined centers because they are the consistent energies that are showing up in your life. There is also consistency in the undefined spaces in the sense that those spaces that are white mean that you're pulling in energies from other people and amplifying that back out. So as we're looking for the confidence and clarity, if we're looking at what your type is, which is going to tell you how you're interacting with the world. So in the case of a projector like this person is, their strategy as a projector is to wait for an invitation. That doesn't necessarily mean they can't do anything in their life without somebody asking for something. There are ways that I've helped my clients really create their environments in a way to manage invitations if they're a projector. But it does mean understanding what your type is and using that strategy consistently. Knowing what your centers are whether they're defined or undefined, also helps you determine how you're showing up in your world. It also helps you recognize any blockers that you might have. So for example, this person had defined throat. Again, that's this square here in the middle. That's their throat chakra, as well as their throat center in human design. And it's where your communication comes from. So if you have challenges feeling like you don't heard, or feeling like you're misunderstood, or you're not sure when you can speak up, and those are situations, or maybe you just have trouble sitting in silence altogether. Those are all keys that there is some conditioning in that particular center, and therefore it needs to be cleared up in order to be able to use energies to the maximum benefits. So let's take a look specifically at how using the type and center can apply to confidence and clarity. So in terms of clarity, as I mentioned, this example is a person who's a projector, which means that their strategy is to wait for an invitation. Well, if they have to wait for an invitation before speaking, this person in particular has strong need to be speaking out because they also have a defined throat center. So the challenge here for this person is that they constantly have a need to feel like they're speaking. And especially because projectors are known to have all the answers, this person always knows what the next step is, right? They're always wanting to provide advice and avoid pain. So for example, they want to share advice to help the people they're talking to not go into any sort of situation that's going to be negative. With that said, the challenge then is that the projector oftentimes has to wait for that invitation to be heard, to speak. So if a projector is going out of turn and giving advice that's not wanted or not asked for, they're going to create conflict and resistance. The clarity comes into place here by recognizing, okay, so I just need to wait for that invitation. I need to think about ways that I can create opportunities to make those invitations come to me. And that will set the timing right. So that way, when I do speak, I am heard. And I do feel like my message is really getting across and being helpful. And that ties right into the confidence piece too. Because if you know that your message is going to be well received without any doubt, you know that you're leaning into your personal energies, you're going to be more likely to say the things that are helpful to people. And if you're doing it at the right time, there's a continual loop of positive acceptance and confidence building for the people that are speaking. And this is an example of a client of mine that I met while traveling. So when I told her about this, it was a very strong resonating factor where she had pretty low self-esteem. And as we were talking, she's like, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just by giving that one little strategy about how to think about when to share the advice, it gave her the power to step back into her own messaging and to not feel like she was being shunned and thrown off all the time. So for projectors, some of the examples, ways that I've helped them really create those environments for themselves is, think about a family situation, right? You just ask the family, do you want me to order pizza for dinner? That can just be a simple question. And they'll say yes or no. Well, there you go. That's, even though you're posing the question, that can still be a way to invite some sort of response. Maybe something else. Maybe they say, no, we really want to go out to dinner tonight. Okay, well, then you can adjust. In the example of social situations, just positioning yourself in an easy to talk to spot. So you go out to a party, and instead of finding the corner where the punch bowl is, you find the standing table in the middle of the room, and you open yourself up to conversation. You're putting yourself in a situation where you're actually inviting those conversations, which can be very scary for many people. I know a lot of people don't like to start conversations, but as a projector, if you have the control of creating the invitations, you'll also, again, continue to build those situations where you're able to share your true self and you're able to share your messaging. And the case of work, another example might be just joining a committee that really supports a cause that's important to you. So maybe it's like health in the workplace or women developing women or something. Whatever the core cause is, if you're on that committee, you're likely going to be asked for yours. You're likely going to have discussion boards that you can respond to and provide responses. So again, even no matter what your strategy is, you're going to be able to use that to start to think about ways that you can control your environment more to bring out the best in you. So that's how types and centers can give you control of your overall energy. Now let's take a look at another piece, a little bit deeper of a piece. So gates and channels are a key component of the human design system. So the gates are all of these little tiny numbers all throughout the chart, and there's 64 of them. Those are directly connected to the I Ching, as I mentioned. And there are a few different views of human design charts that you can look at. There's actually a big like circle picture view that you can often find that's usually very overwhelming for most people. So don't worry if you get it and you're like, oh my God, what is this? Just turn it back off. That's fine. But if you're curious, if you're a researcher, so if you see your profile and you have like a 1 in the profile, you're probably going to be very driven to looking at that picture and seeing what's going on. Don't worry if you don't know what it means to have a 1 profile. Not important at this point. But when you're looking at that bigger circle picture, you'll see that every single hexagrams, which are the 6 different combinations of yin and yang lines, are all directly connected to these 1 through 64 gates. And this visualization is a way to map those gates to the body to make it a little bit easier to digest and understand. So anything that's connected from one section is called a gate. So for example, this is the 54 gate down here. This is the 26 gate right here. Channels mean that you have 2 gates. You have 1 on each side that are connected. So for example, 4816 here is an example of a channel. And if you're looking at this and going, what's the difference between the red and black? The only difference is that your red is your unconscious and black is your conscious. So they're both consistent energies. It's just, is it colored in or not? And then as we start to learn about how to express things, what you're familiar with, where it starts to get into whether it's red or black, the conscious or unconscious. So for our terminologies, we're really looking at what energies are consistent in you. And so anything that's in is a consistent energy that you have all the time. Just like with the centers, where if they're white, which means it's undefined, you're still going to have the power of those white gates and channels. It's just that it's not going to be all the time. So it's going to change depending on the people that you're around. It's going to change depending on how the planets are rotating. Therefore, I, again, focus on the areas that are defined for people so that way you can truly step into your own power first. And therefore, you're also able to better adapt when things are changing in your life. So let's take a look specifically at these gates and channels here. If we zoom in on a particular gate and channel, and I'm going to take a look down here at the bottom, this is a gate 53. That is, it happens to be unconscious in this case, but it doesn't, again, that doesn't matter whether it's unconscious or conscious for this example. And the 42, which is undefined, right? A white space that we have. So these 2 gates, they each have different energies. So the 53 has a starting energy, and the 42 has a finishing energy. So by seeing this in the chart, what we can do is we can start to see, okay, well, how did these energies interplay? Which things am I able to do better in my life? Well, let's think about clarity. If you have this gate defined, you have this relationship, right? The one defined, the other one undefined. You essentially have this consistent starting energy, but not finishing energy. And it suddenly provides validation. It provides a reason for why finishing is tough. And so I have a particular client who I worked with who was a lot of projects for work. And she was expected to really run the full gamut of the project. And she'd be great at the proposal stages. She would write everything. She'd get all the people together. She'd do the logistics. She'd get the presenter. She'd set up all the organization. And then the event would run and she wouldn't know what to do with it afterwards. And so she was forcing herself to go through the steps, like following up with the attendees and figuring out other presenters and things like that. And she did it, but that was a very exhausting portion of her job. So what she did is she then brought this into the confidence side as well. And she set herself up for success. So she said, okay, knowing this about myself, knowing that it's not that I can't finish things, but it's that my strength by myself is just things. And naturally, I'm just not as strong as finishing things. It's more exhausting and it takes more energy. I would serve myself and my community much, much better if I focused on the starting as much as possible. And I brought people into my world to help with those activities. So whether that means partnering with me to do the finishing activities, or whether that means actually handing off the job responsibility altogether, whichever situation worked best for that particular individual is still setting up for success. So by going through this tiny revelation of just saying, hey, look, we're looking at this one small part of this chart, we were able to make an immediate change for her. We were able to give her validation that there wasn't anything wrong with her. We were able to give her validation of where her strengths were, lean into those strengths, and again, form her environment in a way that supported those overall. And as we go through different gates and channels, so I just gave you these two overall, you can absolutely go buy a book and look at every single one of these gates and channels and get definitions of them. That is a piece of the overall. What I've found I'm able to bring to my clients is I use my intuitive abilities and conversations that I have with them to really tie it together into a bigger piece, something that's a much more comprehensive understanding of the integration of all of these different energies. But at this point, just knowing even that this is an option, right? Knowing that the gates and the channels can give you even a tiny bit of setting yourself up for success and how to really make yourself stronger in your everyday life, right? Just little steps. That's going to get you to move yourself to the next level you. And so let's take a look at one more section of human design and how this can really help you up-level yourself. So oftentimes we notice that we don't feel the same every day, right? There are some days where we're more tired. There are some days where everything just feels like it's all over the place. There are some days where we're like, I got this, right? I'm fully in my energy. This is making sense to me. And those changes can often be attributed to transits. So if you've followed astrology, you've probably heard like about Mercury retrograde. You've probably heard about like, Saturn changing and the Saturn returns and things like that. Well, that's because as the planets change, they're constantly influencing us on a molecular level. And in this diagram, this is a picture of a transit example. So with transits, in this picture, all of the blue is my initial pick. So if I just, actually my piece is not the one before this. So if we were just to look at the blue ones, that would have mapped to my initial picture of human. And you would have seen that in my initial picture, my solar plexus is actually not colored in, right? So we're going to focus on that solar plexus for a second to show you some of the differences. So blue is all of my original design. The green is what is happening at a particular moment in time based on different planetary changes. So in my base design, I am normally a sacral decision maker. So if you've done any work with your human design chart already, or if you're just pulling it for the first time from my body graph, there's a section that will say authority. And authority is how we are best made to make decisions in our lives. And there's a hierarchy with that. So if you have that triangle on the right colored in, that is your solar plexus, which is your emotional decision-making center. If you have that colored in, you are a solar plexus authority. The square that is in the middle, that is your sacral. And if you have your solar plexus, if that is white, meaning it's undefined, and then your sacral is filled in, means you are a sacral authority because the sacral decision-making process is secondary in the hierarchy. So normally, my sacral process by my design, if I have nothing influencing me, my solar plexus is undefined and my sacral is defined, meaning I'm normally a sacral decision maker, which means normally I make decisions very quickly. It's a very gut physical process. It's a very yes-no binary response process. However, there are many times when my solar plexus gets activated. Well, what does that mean? It means, from a clarity standpoint, it's a reason for why I need to slow down. So as a manifesting generator, I am generally a go, go, go kind of person. I'm generally doing 17 things at one time. And that's actually part of my design. That's actually what I'm supposed to do. However, when my solar plexus becomes activated, I'm encouraged to slow down. And before I realized this, I used to get frustrated all of the time and go, well, why is this not working? Right? Why is this slowing down? It's like, why can't I make a decision? Like, what's happening? And as I started to track my human design, I realized, oh, every time I hit that frustration point, which by the way, is a sign that I was out of alignment with my natural energy as a manifesting generator, I started to realize that every time I felt that slowdown, it was when my solar plexus was activated. So now what I've done is I've really brought some confidence into my decision making. I now know that I can actually shift how I make my decisions. And I have the clarity that it's okay to slow down. I can't tell you the amount of relief that gave me when I had a reason to explain why everything was getting slower in my life. And it wasn't that it was a bad thing. It was just that my processing adjusted so that way I was able to feel more. I was still able to take a lot of action. I was still able to move forward, but taking that stress off and being able to understand what was going on, that awareness level allowed me to not only shift my decision making, but also to shift how I was stepping into my day. There was no more frustration when I realized this. It was like, okay, I'm going to embrace my emotions today. I'm going to embrace the fact that I'm going to go through waves today. And in this particular example, I started to look through the different dates. So my solar plexus has actually been activated for quite a while. And one of the very cool things is that since human design is directly connected to astrology, we can actually see when these changes are happening. And so I was able to pinpoint that my solar plexus was activated back in November. So this was so now it's currently January, and it's been activated since November 10th. So it's very interesting because in October I was very high paced. I was coming up with all the different ideas and programs, and it just everything was coming to me, and I was like busting out different examples and workshops. And then November hit, and things started to slow down. And then December continued, and they're still really slow for me in terms of speaking about my human design coaching. And when I look at my chart, again, it gives me a reason to understand that. So it's just how I can shift the way I step into my day. It removes that frustration and it allows me to really play with the way that I interact with my environment. Interestingly, when I looked at this, my solar plexus is still activated for quite a while. The way that something gets activated, see that I normally have this gate 19, which is blue, activated. And what happened is this gate 49 is currently activated based on the planetary transits. Anytime you get a new channel, anytime one center completely connects to another, so one shape touches another shape via the line in between, that's going to cause those centers to become activated. So because I have what are called hanging gates all around my solar plexus, anytime either a complete channel comes up, so for example, this 3041, if this was something that was normally, it's normally undefined for me, so I would need the transits to have both gates show up in order to make this. But here I only need gate 39 to be activated. And then that's going to connect with my 55 that's normally there. Right now, my gate 19, which was there, I only need the 49 to connect. So I have a whole bunch of different ways that my solar plexus can get connected. And because of that, it's like there's a lot of overlap that as soon as one turns off, another one turns on. So I'm essentially activated like all the way until the end of January. And I'm like, okay, let me get used to this. So, really sit in. Actually, no, let me look at my notes again. Actually, all the way until February 2nd, but then I only have a couple days off, and then February 5th it starts up again. So I'm going to make sure I use that 3-day window to be making some of my quicker decisions. And it's just because of the different changes. So the way human design help you with this is as you are aware of your transits, and this is definitely a higher level topic, I just want you to be aware at this point that the planets can impact your day to day. And starting to understand yourself at the base level is the absolute important part. But then as you start to go in and look at the additional details, you can go even further and say, okay, this is also why today is different than this. And this is how I can lean better into this. And again, you're getting that validation, you're getting that direction and clarity, and you're able to step more and more into your power the more you learn about yourself. So as we wrap the session, at this point, you came in knowing very little about human design, maybe nothing at all. You were questioning yourself, like, okay, who am I? What am I good at? And you were really looking for some sort of system that can answer those questions and give you guidance. And now you have some of the fundamentals of human design. So I gave you some of the key terms, including the centers, the gates, channels. I mentioned profiles. I mentioned the planets and the transits. You've learned some of the benefits from clarity that you can get from human design, and also your confidence benefits. And so at this point, if you found this helpful and you're still looking for other ways of how human design can actually help you, like, okay, is this really right for me? Can I go further? I have a free checklist that you can download, and that will give you access to some idea about how you can continue working through your human design and how it can help you. So you can go to missyinc.com/welcome human design to download that, or I have the QR code for it available for you on screen. Also, if you have any questions for me or you want to reach out to me directly, Instagram Messenger is the best way to do that. And that is I'm a Missy. I am _Missy on Instagram. And I look forward to connecting with you. I really hope that as part of today's workshop, you now have a much better idea of what human design is and how it can really help you in terms of confidence and clarity in your day-to-day life. All right, take care.